for everyone, and welcome to the Miromiro meeting. I've been reminded that it is actually Maori Language Week. I think there's been some lots drawn as to who will do the opening karakia, and it's I'll have to confess it won't be me. I was so good at languages that they had to give it to me at UE level, and I failed it at school cert English. So I'm a numbers person and programmed that way. But I do wish to try. Yeah. So thank you.
Tuia ki te rangi, tuia ki te whenua, tuia ki te moa. Aronga te pō, aronga te. Ko te muri o nuku, ko te muri o rangi, muri kāputi ki te whaia. Ki te ao marama, ti hei muri ora.
On the spot.
Excellent. That sounds a beautiful language, and I do feel I need to try and find some good church language. My wife is actually not too bad. She's a school teacher, and that's right. So perhaps I need to listen to my wife. It'll be a new experience. Excellent. We have first up page 12, the previous minutes. Is there any matters of factual accuracy that need correcting? I didn't either. Excellent. Any matters arising that will not be taken care of with the agenda? You might want to do some muting there.
Chicky, could you repeat? We've just got some sound issues.
I think she was just telling them.
Oh, okay.
Excellent. Okay, there's no matters arising or matters of factual accuracy. I'll move from there. Yeah, thank you, Kofi. Thank you, John. All those in favour? Against, if any? I've been too quick to get into the agenda. Apologies for declarations of interest. Thank you, Amber. And that was the thumbs up, was it? Thank you. Amber, if you can keep an eye on the screen, because I've got glasses problems. Everyone's a bit blurry up here. Okay, next item there, we've got 5.1, Joshna. We have got the Enterprise Risk and Management Policy and Framework Review.
Yes. Okay, so kia ora everybody. Yes, this has been a review of the policy and the framework. The policy, you can see there's been a couple of version changes here. We've aligned it to the ISO 31000 2018. Previously, I think, so there's version history at the beginning of this policy. You'd see that it was first introduced in 2014 and then reviewed again 5 years later and then 4 years later. So we're getting better at this. We are now reviewing it every 2 years, and here we are in 2024 reviewing this as with the version 4. There hasn't been very many updates on the policy. We still are very committed to risk management. Moving on to the framework, this is an iterative document. It's a iterative process at Council. We are always looking to enhance our maturity and improve risk at Council. So this one was first introduced in 2023, a health risk framework at Council, and then we've made some changes now. There's some grammatical changes. There's the biggest change that we've done to our risk framework was moving from a 4x4 matrix into a 5x5 matrix to just give us a much clearer view on what our risk results would be. And we've introduced Maori obligations as a huge category in our risk management framework, and that was a big success on our side on rolling it out. And the framework is I've introduced a little contextual backdrop, which is visual for everybody to see where the framework sits into our whole risk management suite of documents. Yeah, there's been a lot of improvements. There's changes to these documents that to the last framework and the last policy that has track changes on them if anybody's interested to see them. Democracy Services has been given a copy of those. So if anybody wants to have a look at the track changes to get more clarity on where the changes are, then request a copy from Amber. I'm open to take any questions on this.
Just a few comments from the chair that this lines up with best practice. It's also the policy and then the framework will be incredibly important documents for induction to any new councillors. It deserves having a workshop on just how does a risk framework happen if we've got substantial changes after the elections, which we can't predict at this stage, of course. So that's, to me, I'd commend this as being absolutely vital risk 101 training for all councillors going forward. So we'll keep an eye on that and think about it during the induction. John, you've got a...
Yeah, just a question. Look, it's great we need a risk management policy. I was pleased the way we're improving our risk. Just a question that I had, because I think this table should actually be addressing all risk. And I do notice that you explicitly include significant project risk, saying that it actually falls under that side of it. But project management and risk are actually two different things, really. Yeah, you may look at a risk element, and any management of any sort needs to have that inbuilt, as you say here, needs to have that risk talk built into it. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts in terms of extending the range officially that it is around this table?
We have aligned our risk, the way project management is looking at their risks. We have aligned the way our matrices are still the same. However, under project management, they have the project management framework, and under the PMF, there's a risk element to it that they're dealing with. However, it is customized for project management itself, but it is aligned to the bigger picture of our organizational enterprise risk.
I think, Josh, I'm just thinking that some projects can carry significant risk that relate to other things and potentially cost overruns. And so I do think, especially the high-end projects, something to think about, let's say.
Yes. Thank you, John.
Yeah, similar thoughts to John relating to the project management. But the one I also picked up was the policy excludes CCOs, council controlled organisation. I disagree with that because it says it operate under their own separate governance structure and maintain their own risk policies. It needs council oversight as the CCO poses significant reputational financial risk to this organisation, in my opinion. Examples of that are the five-star airport maintenance, no maintenance over a significant period, selling the Bayou waterfront site, Rangitoni's jetty, the Oakwood site. And if you go to page 40, which shows your Appendix 1 likelihood and consequence table, under financial risk, this shows as major or extreme anything over $1 million. Reputation, moderate, major and extreme, external, loss of trust and confidence within a specific community of interest group, negative attention, loss of trust and confidence with key stakeholders, iwi, funding partners, and elected members. So I think that is a mistake in leaving that out in your original line there. It doesn't include CCO, or specifically excludes, actually, is what it says. The other thing in the entire report, no mention of project timelines, because we're all about timely delivery. I do wonder if there's duplication with oversight, environmental and treaty principles, which show up on pages 41, 42, 43. We seem to duplicate a lot of stuff, and it'll come up with that duplication. But I think there's a mistake there, needs to be included.
Charlie.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Lee. Councillor McNally, agree on the CCO point, and I think it's a relevant point. Graham and I were discussing the work plan for Te Koikoia this morning and fleshing that out. It's a prime opportunity to have a comparison. So you would expect that the Board of Directors of a CCO would have a suitable fit-for-purpose risk management framework that's allowing them the agility to work within running their business and not necessarily tied to council's risk management framework, but probably a comparison built into the work program and requiring the board to report to council in that committee would be a means of dealing with that kind of situation. I'm happy to canvass other thoughts on how we might deal with that.
I note that in the reports that this committee has been receiving historically from Farnell Holdings, there is a occupational safety and health section in that report and set out in the statement of expectations of this reporting across. But at the higher level, I think there is validity in the points that Councillor McNally's raising, and essentially the concept of a risk management framework does actually apply to all areas of the business, but it does need tailoring into certain areas such as OSH, project management, etc. So as a conceptual level, we should have the same concept sitting across the entire organisation.
If I may make a quick comment. Yeah, thanks, Steve. Since we've got a new committee that's set up for the CCOs, that might be something we can discuss and definitely need to be there. I can see what we're trying to achieve, and there has to be that internal focus, but having a cause and overall the policy might be a very good idea, so we're setting the standards. But what may end up reminded me of a formal request that did come from the having a Thai Soccer Bay Trust for a alignment with the risk that council see, given that they actually do take money from rate rights, which is the big one, plus also council as well to do the delivery. So there is a risk associated with that to council. If that's a request been made and it hasn't materialised yet.
These were the things where, as Charlie alluded to, we were discussing half an hour ago about having a work plan that actually covers all the entities that Te Koikoia has an oversight for, and developing a really good oversight work plan so that we can drive the concepts right through the wider organisation. That we are sort of, as governors, have a level of responsibility for, and to make sure there are no corners of the organisation that are sort of running away on their own and creating risk.
This one.
So,
Thank you very much.
excellent. Any other points that anyone wants to raise on this stage?
Yes, I just have a comment, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, look, I just happened to mention to hear in that list of organisations iwi in terms of the risk, and I just wanted to get some understanding of what that looked like and what the policy meant about the risk around iwi. I think iwi was in that list that was being read out, or was it? Or maybe someone else mentioned it. If it's not there, sorry.
Sorry, through the chair, Dave, is your question about the Maori obligations?
Yes, yeah, that's the one. Yeah, what that looks like and how is that to be monitored or reported back?
So what we've done is that we've introduced it as a category at council, that when anybody is assessing their risks and looking at their risk, they need to evaluate what's the consequence or the impact to Maori obligations, if any, when they are assessing that risk. And if that impact then reflects, if it's a primary category for a certain risk, you know, at what level of impact does it have to Maori obligations, and mitigation plans can start working around those. So it is part of the framework.
Okay, thank you very much. And I actually support what Councillor McNally suggested about CCOs. Thank you.
Yes, I think this is an integral part of committee and getting a work plan, which is work in progress at the moment. It's for a new committee. We're focused on applying it to Far North Holdings, but we do need to actually apply it wider and make sure that all the organisations are actually in broad compliance with the overall council policies as the parent entity effectively. Now, how that will be applied is probably a piece of work to be done, and across integrated into absolutely everything. Should be the Te Ao Māori framework sitting right through and integrated, woven in, and to have the right the concepts, because there are risks associated, as has been pointed out, that we need to be. There's a risk that we don't take on the framework and integrate it. Okay. Have any other comments before we move forward? We have a recommendation on, I think it's page 20. Yes, page 20. That we receive the report and we endorse the policy and the framework. Do I have a mover for that so far? Thank you, John. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Against, defending? Against. You're against?
Yeah.
You wish that to be recorded?
Yes, I want that CCO sort of. Yes.
So that's record Councillor McNally's vote on the basis of integration of the CCO. But
Carry the can if they fail.
noted. And if perhaps then, could I just make a secretarial note to refer that to the Te Koikoia committee as the appropriate place for that to surface. The next item, we've got 6.1, open resolutions, and we're talking about page 47.
Have his word.
It's moved. I have a seconder, and then I'll open it for discussions. I'm happy to second from the chair. Any discussion?
Just a question, really. I see the top one, 1st of July, there's two of those. Given that this is the last meeting of the dry year.
No, we have one, which really for the annual report, I believe. It is.
Except for the annual.
Generic.
Why I'm asking that is just aware that we'll be then passing this off to the new council, what it may look like. It'd be nice to tidy up before they receive it. Some of these that are relatively straightforward, I believe, just asking for information. It's just a comment there.
And I'll follow up with that. Please, the first 4 items relate to or have a relationship to the asset management plan and reporting, which I've been asking for since the 22 election. Here we are again. So I think if we don't get real clarity, and I know the finance team are working on something that will change this quite significantly. The elected, whoever they might be, need to understand what's going on here. The clarity of the capital expenditure require clear understanding of under and overspends, carry forward funds, why they're being carried forward, how long they've been carried forward. All those issues are important because they impact our ability to deliver other capital projects. Thank you.
Noted. And the asset management plan, we are an infrastructure organisation, it is vital. But I can say from my view across a number of other councils, that this is a common issue, and many of these assets have been with us and were generated before the days of good computerised systems. There is a
Yeah,
lot of work to do.
I understand that, but I mean, that is irrelevant. The digitisation that's occurred, there's no reason any of that information should. This is assurance, risk and finance. This has a major impact on our finances and huge risk implications.
I agree.
It's important. So I don't want it to be belittled by whatever happens over the digitisation process.
I guess the point I was raising there was that this is endemic across the sector of the quality of the records, and it's a huge task to get it all up and running. But we've got to make a start and get it there because it impacts our 30-year infrastructure plans, impacts the LTP, impacts the day-to-day.
Sorry, Chair, perhaps staff should respond to Councillor McNally, since his frustration is that the organisation, not you as Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I don't disagree with Councillor McNally's frustrations in this space. It is something that looking forward to the next long-term plan, we've got action underway in terms of improving our systems and our processes to ensure that we've got better planning and reporting against delivery of that plan. We are in a situation at the moment where we're working through the long-term plan that we have in front of us, and there are significant carry forwards which will be tabled to council at the next council meeting for consideration. SLT are tasked with the exercise of going through and really having a thorough understanding of the status of all of those projects. And it, unfortunately, given the state that the organisation is in at the moment, we are working towards it, but it will take time. And it's making sure that we, across all of the details that we have in front of us, to make the best informed, to allow elected members to make the best informed decision they can with the information we have available at the moment.
Thank you. Any further comments, Councillor McNally?
No, I know there's a lot of work in play, but it's just, yeah. I could be out the door in a couple of weeks, and who's going to champion the cause then? We might just slide straight back.
We could come and do a deputation to you.
Yeah, we do it monthly then.
Yeah.
Okay, being moved and seconded. Any further discussion? We have a recommendation on page 47. We receive the open resolutions update, but I think the points are is this is another important document in the handover process. Sort of parting comments. Are we happy to vote? Yep. All those in favour? Right. Against, if any? Carried. Ian. You have a report commencing on page 51 in the papers. I'll let you sort of raise the highlights and the key points you think that the elected members should be aware of.
Cool. I take it as read. I'll put it out for questions, please. Initially. I'll put it out. Any questions specifically arising from this report?
Yeah, well, actually, I just noticed the Kaikoura Library 23. That's quite high incidence for threatening behaviour. I guess with a new library building, maybe they can be better addressed. But is there any action being taken about mitigating against some of those incidences? Staff statement is what I'm asking. That probably applies for the main service centre as well. These are some of the big ones.
The location of Kaikouri Library is really challenging. Not only is it being right next to a public open space, but it's got an off license right there that sells individual cans as well. So it's you know, that area is a target for non-library users that can float in there. Plus then we've had some random events in the evenings, vandalism, people breaking in for, there's not much there that you want to take really, but those things have happened. So ultimately, I think with the Kaikouri Library, the only real long-term solution is moving the location, which we've started now. So other than that, if you look at sort of later on in the report around what controls we're able to put in place to reduce the threat of aggression towards our staff there, just with the conflict resolution training and emergency lockdown processes, the lone worker processes, etc. that we've got. So that's what we've got in place at the moment, Councillor.
Thank you for that. And Kaitara, which is a big number there, the open centre, they've got all the other services there. Again, our staff safety is the thing looked at.
Would you mind if I?
Yes, go ahead, Nick.
So yes, Tiahu has similar processes in place, council of usage, so there is a centralised system which is tested regularly, including things like drones, so that staff are equipped to know what to do when these things happen. It is a hard and unfortunate reality of operating public spaces that it is becoming slightly more risky to do so. Communities are under stress. People are experiencing a lot of difficulty, and those difficulties spill over into our public spaces quite regularly. So the only way that we can really meet those is ensure that our staff are trained and prepared, and that we have, you know, security systems in place, which we do.
Thank you.
Alternatively, we could put security on the door with the budgetary issues that comes with.
Thank you. At the top of page 53, it talks about police being involved in 55 of the 274 reports, but no legal action taken against the offenders other than a warning being issued. Have there been occasions where, like, we would prefer to see, you know, police take action on these incidences, and is there anything we can do to see them, you know, be more fair?
I might take that one. So, in relation to your query around that, it's contextual because quite a lot of the incidents that we report involve minors, which obviously complicate our ability to do much in a legislative fashion in terms of prosecuting. Where we can and where it's appropriate, we have prosecuted, so things like trespassing and enforcing trespassing. We've had a couple of incidences without naming names where we've had to follow up and threaten to pursue legal action if that person did not abide by the trespass. But generally speaking, a trespass is usually as far as we go or need to go, depending on the situation. But we monitor every interaction really closely. I personally make sure that I am apprised of every incident and do a debrief and have those discussions around what we can do and what we should do case by case.
Is it possible to do some proactive comms? I've seen other councils do video on, you know, the impacts that incidences have on staff, or, you know, just like giving a bit more, you know, giving an open corridor to the public on the impacts.
I think that's a great suggestion. And it is something that we've actually been working on in the background as part of a broader what your libraries are and what they're for and what they do in the community. Because obviously for us, positive messaging is the best, because that actually creates the behaviour that we
Yes.
want.
Yeah.
But I think that there are a lot of ways to sort of subtly see it, you know, and when that doesn't happen, actually it's really difficult, because we're out there trying to serve and support the community, and it's hard for us to do that when people bring in behaviours that are what we would call under the line in terms of being acceptable. So great suggestion, and I will come back to you soon with some dates around when you can see stuff.
And just on the, going further, some of the animal control incidences, as I've been helping people do their feedback to the animal management survey, some people are saying that often that officers won't go to a property because they're scared. So, and you have the, you know, things in place like going in pairs and the cameras and stuff like that, but to ensure that they can carry out their job and protect people's safety by not having dangerous dogs just roaming around, are we, you know, working with the police to do these dog seizures?
Yes, the police will attend at any animal confiscation that they get asked to.
Okay,
The guys can do things like look at stuff warning flag against property as well to see what the history is there.
Yeah.
There's that local knowledge of, we all know where
Yeah.
the bad houses are,
yes,
and you can tell
Yeah.
tell when you drive up as well.
Yeah.
So they do get some support there. Yeah.
okay, that's
Yeah,
good.
in some of our recorded incidents, you can actually see, you know, we backed off, police came in, police had a hard time themselves, but then still managed to get the job done. And I will say, you know, in support of the police, earlier on in the year, we had a builder who was being extremely threatening to one of our building inspectors, both over the phone and in person, and you know, to the point where they're like, we're not going to go. He was cutting his nose off to spite his face, because the builder needs inspection doing on a property,
Yeah.
and yet is ringing up and
It's
being,
red flagged.
yeah. So because it got so threatening, and because the building inspector was smart enough to record the conversation, we gave that to the police. Police listened to it, because he threatened to kill him on the phone, and the police went, yeah, okay, we'll take this on. And they actually went and arrested the guy, brought him into the station, had a word with him, said, you know, you better calm down, and then let him go, fair enough. But at least they took some action and brought the guy in, you know, and we managed to get the inspections done. Moved on since then. I think there is some support there.
Any other questions? I have one there with, as Kaitaia at the Te Centre. Is there anything to do with the design of the layout? We're in leased premises there, if I'm right. They're leasing those out of the trust.
Yeah, the purpose built.
They were purpose
It is
built. Okay, so sometimes I guess the design of the building sometimes can facilitate issues, if you like, but that was just a thought. Thank you for that, and I'll quietly note, because the trust is part of the Te Kuikuiā remit as well, so we should bear that in mind as we get to that particular entity.
I'd say quickly, I spent a good period of time in Te Ata with the customer centre one day, watching Waina people come through and be abusive. There's people asking for like dog registrations, and then angry ratepayers complaining. So it really opened my eyes to just how challenging and relentless it can be some days for our staff. I think I'm very happy that this is reported here at the committee. It gives, just raises the level of awareness so we can discuss these issues. But at an operational level, I'm also happy that we have a good feel for what's going on. And obviously, I'd just say to you, Nick, to call out if we need resources or a plan or support or staff, that we will be there to and change things and respond as required. And likewise, message to you.
If possible, I know I haven't actually been asked a question, but I think it might just also be important to leave you with a contextualization. So those numbers are really serious and I take them very seriously. But I think it is important to remember that we see over 40,000 visits through our libraries alone a month. And so when we talk about that number, while it is a scary number that we keep a really close weather eye on, it is a very tiny percentage of the overall business that we actually through those services.
It actually surprises me, like, I think those numbers are low, because you could almost get those numbers in a week, frankly, or a day sometimes. It depends where the bar is in terms of what you classify as threatening behaviour.
Largely a testament to the staff's ability to be escalated.
Thank you.
Maybe I can do my doctorate on this because I would love to see the data correlated with the moon thing.
So you are so right. Absolutely.
Full moon, I bet my stat.
Full moon provides some food. Sizzles.
Interesting you say that's, this very definite and good data and down in the Canterbury region that there's a correlation of problems with when we get nor'westers coming through in the weather. Yeah, that's the level of pollens and everything. Just ask any school teacher from down there. We have a recommendation on page 51. Do I have a mover? Okay. Good job. Thank you. No further discussion. Okay, all those in favour? Against, if any? Carried.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Insurance renewals, Ken.
So item 6.3 on your agenda, insurance renewals. Just to give you an outline of the process of the paper here. Basically the 1st of April, early April, up to the 1st of November, and the insurance to finally agreed upon, signed off, put through the renewal process, start with our broker out, provided entry here for you, people have diagram, and the insurance costs, as well as the cost increases. So I just note that we had a substantial increase of 40% in the year 2023, 24, and this last year, 10.1. So that's driven largely by material damage and disruption. And the other insurances are relatively stable, but that's the most substantial increase in the of insurance. And we're not alone with that. So I've provided commentary in there of reasons for that.
Ian, could I just interrupt? I think some of the people online are having difficulty in hearing.
Oh, okay. So just
Maybe speak up for the microphone.
okay. So I'm speaking to the room. Sorry, Graham. So all this is just a paper for insurance renewals process. So item 6.3 on your agenda. I've provided commentary, full commentary on the insurance renewal process, complete with diagrams and the cost increases over the past 3 years, the trend. So I'd like to take this paper as read and some information, which is paper. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask or email online?
Any questions on that?
Yeah, I just note that the chair, that since, well, 22-23 year, that's an over 50% increase in insurance. What is, and I know there's been a lot of issues and problems, especially with COVID adding to the insurance wise. What is the kind of best guesses, I suppose? Is that going to trend downwards? So yes, get closer to
it is.
Keep going.
In the greater market, the insurance trends are stabilising in terms of price increases. I'm not an insurance underwriter though, I'm not an expert by any means, I'm a chartered accountant, but the trend is towards more of that 10 to 20%. So we, no doubt, so Aon is negotiating hard on our behalf, but no doubt there will be some kind of increase in material damage and business interruption area, which is largely driven by risk,
risk of natural events in New Zealand as well in the market. And as well as, opinion, insurers have to make a profit and it's profit taking as well. Generally, it's the worldwide significant events and events in New Zealand that have driven the market.
Okay. Go for it.
Thank you. When I first came on council, we were tasked with reviewing whether or not we should insure the pipes in the ground. And I wonder when we need to review that decision again, but it's not for now. And I also am wondering, only because it's, listed there in the executive summary, when it comes to roading infrastructure, uses the Kirikiri Heritage Bypass Bridge as an example. Are there other bridges, like the Pukapu Bridge is a new bridge that was completed? When do we determine whether new bridge is included in the slip?
So go through the chair. We undertake a valuation renewal process. Generally, it's every year, but there are groups of assets which are cycled. At the moment, we're undertaking that process, which is the following paper in here. And as those assets come on board and go live or are being built, they get insured. So that's how it's picked up. Charlie.
Thanks, and through you, Mr. Chair. In addition to that, one of the items that the team do review the list of assets that we've got and for things. So any additions, as Ken's mentioned, are brought into scope once work is completed, or if it's under construction phase, it will have the appropriate kind of policy. Also, assets which are tabled for disposal, for example, are reflected in that policy as well. So for the Kaikohe Library, for example, and we need to speak on the property at 11 Matthews Ave, just to make sure that the insurance, the final numbers are cognizant of the decision that council has recently made there to apply the appropriate policy. With regards to pipes under the ground, it was originally, we do not insure the retake network for our waters infrastructure. Northland is deemed a comparably low earthquake risk, which is your major source of disruption that would be widespread for our ability to provide water services by comparison to some other areas. But as we've developed our water services delivery plan, it has been flagged that we do not insure, because we have to discuss all of our insurances for water infrastructure, and that will be considered as a part of the scoping phase going into the CCO.
Yeah.
So
Slips are the main impact on our infrastructure, not earthquakes. Yeah. Often they are damaged. The river going through, or the sea taking the water.
we're expecting a full assessment of all of the infrastructure and how it will be insured as it goes into the CCO, because ultimately the directors of the CCO would then be liable for providing insurances against that, and they would need to make a commercial risk decision.
So, the Cody Dam came out of the list and it's being assets.
I will come back to you on that to confirm.
And so, is it possible? Do you think that governance should get a look at this list, because there have been a huge number of staff changes? Just to make sure that nothing's been missed.
It is operational, and we're comfortable that the team do work through that. If governance would appreciate visibility, just to tick and tie that off, I've got no concerns with that. But it is an operational sort of
I totally agree.
in terms of total transparency, in terms of elected members and for the community. That's not a concern.
We have had some assets divested or and required.
There is a process that we run through, and we've got a great fixed asset team, and I'm sure they'll be covering all of that off, but we can provide that information.
And I have been at the receiving end in oh no, we don't own that, and actually go to someone else that's got the list they find that we do own that asset.
Yep, not a problem.
A clarification, a copy of the fixed asset register summary or asset?
Just the insured asset list.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. How helpful our FOFI has been. But can you tell that we're trying to tidy, like be as helpful as we can, because we've only got 27 days left in our role. And we don't want stuff to slip. Just on page 57, should that say 2024?
Page 57. No, that's the existed, that's the policies.
From 2004.
Oh, yes, sorry, that's my typo. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Mayor, through the chair, sorry, I
Um,
apologise.
My questions were around. I think you've answered this and that it is operational. But the material damage and business interruption, that sort of stuff. Or is it standing timber? I was thinking of like projects that weren't kind of like long-term plan stuff that managed to get in, and Cody Dam was one, so that can come off, but we want to make sure it's come off, but it wasn't done by our staff themselves, who I assume have a box tick list thing when something's finished, when a project's completed, whether it's decommissioning or commissioning, that then talks to your team, Charlie, and insurance comes on or insurance comes off. And one of the ones that I thought about when I was reading this was the Te Kū revitalisation project, and that was one that Councillor Foy did all the money in COVID, managed to hustle that money honey, and then got all of this awesome award-winning stuff done up in Te Kū to revitalise the town centres up there. But a lot of that cultural artwork has been damaged. So is that now on our register or not? The Kaitaia Town Square, is that insured for and on the register, because it's not on the city care maintenance register, or was it? And now, do you know what I mean? So we've missed the plug-in for other arms of our council, and I just want to make sure that we have it for the insurance side of things as well. Or it has been, and that's why material damage has gone up in our premium. So I thought I'd just ask the question around that. And then also, you could answer that, and then also the commercial motor. This is just, I don't know, it jumped up, we got more cars, or way more cars, and then it jumped down, but our cars are better, so the premium's less because of, I don't know.
So through the chair, I can answer that question. We've got slightly less cars. So it's relatively static, but we've got slightly less vehicles that are being insured. It's about 5 less.
And just a comment on the, specifically the Te Kū revitalisation projects, have those been captured by someone at an operational level?
Through you, Mr. Chair. We'll work through the items for ones which are come off and ones which are added on. The process at an operational level that we go through is it uses our fixed asset register, which is attached to our accounting books, and we have that audited every year. So the auditors will go through making sure that anything which is added that we've either spent money on, we've recorded as a vested asset, however it comes to us, is added to the fixed asset register, and that's the source of information that we then also use to share with our insurers. So that process is fairly robust, but we can absolutely come back on these specific assets. When we're looking at the comparison from 2023 to 2024, part of that big increase was in relation to Paterna Centre as well, which came through as a through the arrangement that council received that for the repayment of that debt, and the insurance associated with that building was quite substantial. So,
Just randomly, because it's the fixed asset register. All these temporary speed bumps, but they last 5 to 10 years that we put up and around, but then we put signage up and all that. Does that go on a fixed asset register as well? That was all. Thank you.
Any other questions? I've actually got a couple I'll throw in in case anyone wants to think about it. Another one. The market is definitely softening. I'm seeing this around the councils over the last 6 months. There is a new insurer into the market that's decided the pricing's got to a point that someone wants to enter, and that has helped with the options out there. Bridges, if take care with, given the climatic risks that this council faces due to its location, that you're not underinsured there. I think you've done a couple of bridges in the last relatively short period. I've spoken from conversation, but if you need good bridge data, go talk to Hastings. They've got 27 that they've done recently, and they found they were significantly underinsured using the old indexing that's out there. So for management, just to check that your valuation's there. Typically, you don't insure the rest of your eroding structure. I guess the other one is, where are we sitting on professional indemnity as far as building risks go? Because that market became incredibly difficult 12 or 18 months ago. And basically because one of the insurers pulled completely out of the market. So perhaps are you able to give any indications about what our coverage and exposures are?
I can review that, through the chair, I can review that, Graham. I have that information handy at the moment. I can review that for you and come back to you.
Yeah.
With a response.
Because there was, they did put the excesses generally up to $250,000 as the result of the leaky homes, and we get flow out, I think, here with the old civic insurance. Were we part of that collective where we get tail out from the various years on leakings?
I would press a call through the chair. I wouldn't know at this stage. We've got comprehensive coverage through risk pool, which is a large.
Yeah, risk pool.
So I could check further.
Yeah, because that's one where there were ongoing issues coming through. There was also, but building Act compliance was one where the market became incredibly hard about 18 months ago, with one of the major insurers coming out. The cover dropped significantly and the premiums went out astronomically, like 200%. So I'd just be interested where it sits and what is the risks to this council of particularly multi-stories. Now, I can't see, other than perhaps in a couple of locations where we do have multi-stories here, and that's probably Pi here, potentially. Yeah. The other, what was the other one I had here? Bridges, buildings. Come back to it if I haven't to think about it offline. Any other comments? Okay, we have a recommendation on page 56 that we receive the report on insurance renewals. Do I have a mover? John? Steve, you're happy to?
Yep.
Thank you. All those in favour?
Right.
Against any? Is that one someone voting against? Ah. Okay, so carried. Valuations update. Ken, you're still in the hot seat.
Item 6.4, paper on valuations update for you. Recommendations take this as read, and I'll take it going through the valuation renewal process. It's just explained before. In particular, I think in this paper, it's the valuation assumptions that we use. Around that, all pretty vanilla, but issues around also describes the firms we currently use. We're all registered reputation.
Do we rotate our valuers at all across different classes of assets? So we'll have someone doing roading 1 year and perhaps for 3 years, and then do a change of and rotate who we have looking at it. So there's a risk of, I guess, people getting over familiar and having the same mindset. And it can be useful to challenge that from time to time with a different viewpoint.
through the chair, when I've reviewed this for the last 3 years, when SBN is our base company for the majority of the assets, I'd have to go back previously and check who we used previously 3 years before.
Just wondering whether going
Yeah.
forward to future years as a carry forward point, whether it's an idea to do a rotation to some extent. You don't want to incur all the setup costs too often, but I guess guidance would probably be certainly probably no more than 6 years of the same valuer. But again, Councillor McNally having been in the industry might well have some viewpoints that might be useful for us.
It'll be the cost of changeover unless you've got all the information. You need to get a hold of all their workings, everything, if you're going to change. You pay for it. And you'll pay for the setup cost again. Under the Institute of Valuers rules and regulations, you'd be unlikely to have any significant failure in the valuation application because the risk to the value is huge. You can sue them.
So that's a comfort from someone in the industry.
That's why I got out of it. I'm sick of being sued. These dickhead lenders.
Mr. Chair, these values, I do wonder, particularly to some of them are, I presume they are fair value. When you look at the valuation.
Yes, correct.
So
Depreciated on a straight line basis.
serious reticulation, fair value, I don't think anyone would buy it. And we don't insure them. Therefore, I wonder,
Optimised depreciated replacement value, I think, is the basis for those type of infrastructural things, which see what that means is what is the value of it now if we optimised it to the latest technologies and processes.
Yes.
And then back to work a new one, then back worked it through its useful life.
So therefore, what is the value of them? Yeah, that's a getting to the whole new ball game. You shouldn't be depreciating replacement. But that maybe we need to look at. No problems with buildings. And which we insure. We need to know, have a good idea what the value is. And we can insure for replacement. Sure, no problem with that. If you wish to, pay the extra. Anyway, that's the side. That's because
Probably one of the greatest risks is our roads and bridges because you'd have to question on how good their condition assessment is. Because that impacts the replacement value as well. Same as a building. The building's got rotten framing and knackered, isn't it? Doesn't have value.
maybe it's work in progress.
I think this all cycles back to Councillor McNally's point on understanding your asset register if you're having an asset management plan. Because if you are actually doing all the maintenance to keep it up to full utility of the asset, then that should be factored into the evaluations.
Well, the easiest one to check would be housing the earthquake.
So I think this is all part of that ongoing project. The other point I was going to make under insurance, it's just come back to me, which does relate into this, is thinking about your data that you've got to be able to provide the insurers, which is all coming out of the asset register, asset management plans. With geolocation, with climate change is becoming far more important. And the AON people, sorry to go back to the previous topic very briefly, if you can give them that data and they can assure themselves that the asset is not located in a silly position, that will improve your risk profile. Otherwise, they assume the worst. They don't have data. So this should also impact into our valuations. That if you've got an asset in a poor location, automatically it's probably in an open market situation going to be regarded as a less valuable asset.
Through the chair, for example, with the structure in a floodplain.
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Will be uninsurable shortly.
Possible.
We are implementing an asset management system at the moment, which is geospatially aware. And we're hoping, well, I've been advised by the team that should have outputs available by the end of this year. So it's incumbent on us to make sure that we share that as a part of the valuation process with the insurers. They have that information at hand.
Aon, our brokers, do actually have a portal, etc., but I'll talk to that offline, so we've moved on. Any other matters you raise on this topic?
Well, the only other question I have, we've got detail around all the insurance costs of the various across the business thing. Have we got that sort of detail around power use? We really used to see the power costs of our sewage plants, water treatment plants, things like that. They must be massive. And then do we get a discount? As a council, we're all pensioners. The council's ancient now. All the assets. Do we get a discount from the power company, Top Energy? I just wonder if we can challenge them on some of that. But the individual costs would be addressed as well. That relate to the type of plant and the upgrades and what's best going forward.
Maybe that's a good question to raise under the procurement paper that PX.
Well, I'll bring it up again then, but
yeah,
that's just details here.
We have a recommendation on page 59. There's no further discussion. Someone happy to move in that direction? Councillor Mandel, first. Any further discussion? All those in favour? Against, if any? Carried. We have 6.5 resource consent abatement notice update.
Thanks, Keith.
Thanks, Keith. Do we have go or Scott? You'll
Only means Chair.
you'll step in.
I will.
Good, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So we've got a paper here setting out the pages 65 and through 67, the various ones that we're aware of at the moment. If you've got any comments that you'd just like to share with the committee in progress and.
Sorry, something else.
No further comment, Mr. Chair. The Kaitaia wastewater network overflows is largely complete. Great to take another abatement notice off, but nothing further unless there are any questions.
Any questions from members? The Russell landfill. It's noted here, no update is available on capping the landfill to reduce the leachate. Is that, you just haven't been able to get one, or should we be expecting one? On page 66 in the middle, if you're looking.
Yes, I have that. Thank you. Sorry, nothing comes to mind, but I can. Sorry, actually, I was on annual leave while our agendas were finalised, so I don't have a current anything further to add at the moment, but we'll have a look into that just to refresh where it's up to.
See where and how long we're likely to be in that situation.
With Russell, the discharge has been brought up to scratch, right? So all the works are complete.
Yes, correct. The wastewater discharge is up to scratch. Abatement notice lifted on that, just the leachate from the old landfill.
Which, when it rains, it exacerbates it.
Yes.
Flows through underneath and washes out.
The stream that goes to the ocean.
The worst of
The oyster farm, yes.
Ah, that was that what I saw on the TV the other night? That was not
They've
you.
got really good measuring systems, so they don't harvest if you're.
Yes, there was one at Oyster Farm somewhere up towards this way. think it was further south from here that was on the news.
Wasn't us. Last night. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? If not, we've got a recommendation on page 62 that we received the report on the resource consent abatement notice risk profile. Do I have a mover? Thank you. Seconder? Thanks, John. All those in favour? Against, if any? Carried. We now move to public excluded. We have items listed on page 68 and 69 along with the reasons. Do I have someone that's happy to move those? Thank you, John. I'll second from the chair. Any discussion on those reasons and the papers as to whether they should be in public excluded? Being none, I'll put the resolution. All those in favour? Against, if any? Carried. Now into public excluded. We'll take a 2-minute break just while the recordings and things are handled.